Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for coming. So today I would like to talk to you about this question I've been fascinated with since I got here like 2 years ago. And since we only have 8 minutes, I thought I would just give you the take-home message straight away. So the answer of this question is yes. But I think the context is important, so let's have some context. The context is climate change. So as this photo clearly shows, climate change has pervasive impacts on absolutely all aspects of life on Earth. And one of the most common species responses to climate change are range shifts. As species change their distribution to track optimal habitat conditions. As a result of this, for example, in the upcoming decades, we expect major shifts in the vegetation of the world. So, for example, in Spain, where I'm from, we'd expect the temperate beach forest to be replaced by warm Mediterranean vegetation. Now, the thing is that most of these predictions are already a reality. So this is an example I was telling you about, but there are many, many others. So as a marine ecologist, I'm much more interested in the changes that happen in the underwater forests, and that's the forest formed by seaweeds, and specifically I work with the biggest seaweeds of all, that is kelps. So as you probably have guessed by now, I work in the same system as Harry. So just as a reminder, we have this northern cool water kelp species, Laminaria hyperborea, distributed from Spain all the way up to Norway. And then on the opposite hand, we have Laminaria coluca, a southern species distributed from Morocco all the way up to France, and since the 1940s in the UK. And since then, this species has become abundant, has expanded its distribution, and to some extent is starting to replace the northern species, to the point that in some locations now it's absolutely dominant. So what me and my colleagues are interested in understanding if this shift, if this change, if this novel forests are in a way equal to the northern cold water forest. So Harry has told you all about the different animals and plants that lives on these kelps, but I'm much more interested in how in function. So I like to imagine these kelp forest ecosystems as like a car. So the kelps are this biological engine that give the car the power, and then besides the engine we have all these pieces, which would be the species that actually make the car work. No? So what I'm interested is in understanding if we change this biological engine, if we change it for the southern species, will the car still work? So in other words, will the replacement of the northern kelp by the southern species alter how this forests function, and then why? And specifically, I look at processes associated with carbon and nutrient cycling. So kelps are extremely productive plants. They produce lots of biomass. This biomass partly is consumed by some of the grazers, like these ones in situ, and the rest is channeled as detritus. So the blades will erode, and then this detritus gets exported. It eventually gets consumed by a whole other range of other taxa, and eventually decomposes. And actually, most of the productivity is channeled through this pathway. So let's start a look. Let's have a look at first if these two different species differ in productivity. So here we have the productivity, the growth of the northern species at two of our sampling sites over the year. And as we can see, this species starts growing early in the year, peaks in the spring, and then towards summer it decreases and completely halts its growth. This species is a textbook example of what they call a season anticipator, since its growth follows a strategy not really well correlated to environmental conditions like light or nutrients, and rather it has this strategy to start growing early in the season, so it grows earlier than most of other seaweeds. On the other hand, the southern species, we get a completely different story. So this one actually peaks in summer, and we get more or less continuous growth throughout the year. And if we actually plot here the irradiance, the amount of light Plymouth gets, we see that actually the growth tracks this sunshine hours curve really, really well. So this species is the opposite. It's an example of a season responder, as its growth is really well correlated with environmental factors. So it seems that some of the differences in productivity between the two species are at least partly related to these differences in strategies. So let's have a look now at what happens to this productivity, and we'll start by looking at the grazes. Here we have the abundance of this little guy, this top shell, again at two of our sampling sites across over the year. And we can see that throughout most of the year, the southern species tends to support higher numbers of grazers. It tends to suffer from greater herbivory. And this means that at least the trophic, more primary productivity is channeled through the trophic or herbivory pathway. And to try and have a look at why this may be, I did this experiment in the lab where you basically prepare two kelp biscuits of the different species, put a snail in the middle, and then see which one they prefer. And supporting our observations in the field, it seems that the snails tend to prefer the southern species. And I think this may be because of the differences in biochemical composition between the two species. So, and this in turn affects their palatability or nutritional quality. But as I said, most of the productivity actually gets channeled through the detritus. So let's have a look at that as well. Here we have the detrital production at two of our sites. And again, no surprise here. The southern species produces more detritus, but that's not a surprise because they grow more, so they produce more detritus. What's interesting is to try and have a look at what happens to this detritus once it gets exported. So to investigate this, we did this experiment when you basically put kelp inside these bags. It's a classic leader bag experiment. Leave it on the seabed for a month and see how fast it decomposes. And interestingly, the southern species decomposes at two of our sites, at both sites, decomposes much quicker. And again, I think this relates to the differences in biochemical composition. So even though these two species look quite similar, it seems to be that they taste quite different. And I always say that this is like a bit like bacon and vegan bacon. They kind of look the same. One taste is great, and the other one not so much. So just to sum up, these novel kelp forest ecosystems, they do function differently. But however, what I think the key point here is that the core ecological processes, the core ecological functions were maintained. And this is important because even though the dynamics of the system may change, the system will not collapse. And probably this means that the ecosystem services that this forest deliver will not collapse either, or the impact will be not very big. And just finally, these changes in how these forests function seem to be underpinned by key plant functional traits like the growth strategy or the biochemical composition. So yeah, just to thank all my colleagues and you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert, for a very entertaining talk. Is there any questions for Albert?
Albert, do you know any of the biochemical differences that may influence the preference and the degradation rates?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do now at the uni using the fancy machines.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I think there's two things to look here. Some will, you can go like, look at if there are differences in like anti-herbivory compounds, or you can actually look if they actually are more nutritious or like they are more tasty. So for example, they would have more proteins or a higher nitrogen content. So yeah, that's why we are trying to look at. Now, my feeling is that they have different tastiness, not different differences in like a herbivore deterrent compound.
Any more questions?
I guess related to that, one of the big differences that you might see is in the detrital pool, and how much of that ultimately stays as refractory carbon and how much ends up back into the ecosystem. Did you look at the fine scale degradation as well as the large mesh bags?
No, the fine. What do you mean by fine
Well,
scale?
as in how much of it would ultimately be buried in the sediment?
Oh, right.
Versus,
Yeah, this is something that it's really interesting to do because no one has really done that. But probably because it's quite difficult to understand or to follow this detritus, where it goes, how far. Because this is important because this detritus may subsidize other habitats, no? Like the deep sea. Definitely would be very interesting to know that. I think it's quite difficult, though. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? No?